everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and once again we are joined by derivatives and blockchain expert Stephen Kendal. Very glad to be joined by him again, and today we are going to talk about Bitcoin because, as a lot of you have noticed, the market has been insane lately. We have seen it nearing about $3,000 American, and in Canada it broke the $4,000 Canadian mark, which is quite incredible. We're watching history unfold, but of course there's been a bloodbath in the markets as of June 12th, 2017, and it's nothing to worry about, folks. This is a very healthy breather. I'm glad to see it happen because that allows more people to get in, and if it went just sky high nonstop all day every day for a year, there'd be a huge risk involved there. So I think that it's a healthy thing to see. And Stephen, I wanted to ask you about what's causing Bitcoin to suddenly, since January, go from about $600 to almost $3,000, now down to about $2,550. What is causing this dramatic rise and these corrections, and then followed by other rallies? It's just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, nothing goes up. Nothing goes up in a straight line.
No.
The reason why we're getting this pullback at the moment, Josh, is purely because of the speed that it's gone up. Just before Christmas, it was at $700 a Bitcoin, and now we've just literally come off the $3,000 Bitcoin, and we now, as you said, quite rightly so, we've pulled back to 2,500. Now, really, you have to look at where we've come from. So you've got to go back, really, you've got to go back to 2010, and Bitcoin was less than 10 cents. So to go from 10 cents to $1, to go from $1 to $10, from $10 to $100, from $100 to $1,000, from $1,000 to $3,000. That's a long way. That is a long, long way. So this pullback, you'll get people saying, "Oh, it's crashing." No, it's just natural. As far as I'm concerned, the price is still going up. 10 cents in 2010, and this is heading to $1 million. Trust me, this is heading to $1 million plus. So when it gets pulled back, we hit the 3,000, it pulled back. Is it going to pull back anymore? I don't know. Could it pull back anymore? Probably, yeah, of course it could. But is the long term going up? Absolutely, absolutely. So this is what really people have to understand. The ones who cashed out just before Christmas now must be thinking to themselves, is the pullback finished, or is it going to come back down to where it was before Christmas? Now, as far as I'm concerned, for it to pull back from $3,000 to $700, that'll be, well, it won't happen. It won't happen.
Well, it's funny. First, I just wanted to quickly go into the fact that back in 2009, people were trying to get me to get into Bitcoin when it was at 7 cents. People were telling me, "You've got to put $2,000, $3,000 into this. You won't regret it." And I looked at them like they were crazy because this is a brand new industry back in 2009. And I'm thinking, you've got to be completely insane. Why would I throw that much money into some digital currency? I like my gold and silver, which I still do, and I believe in diversification. But just watching it over the years, I can't help but just put my head in my hand in frustration, thinking about how much money I'd have today if I put thousands of dollars in at 7 cents. It would be I'd be incredibly rich. And that's the thing. I feel like a lot of people going from 10 cents to $20 to $100 to now almost at 3,000. I constantly hear it's a bubble, it's a bubble, it's a bubble, and it seems like almost delusional at some point, because first of all, they make this false equivalency between centrally planned, derivatives markets, just manipulated nonsense, and then decentralized free market demand of individuals. It's not manipulated, it's not artificial, and this equivalency, this false equivalency that people draw, it just seems absurd. And I find that when it comes to Bitcoin, a lot of these people will say they know why it fell, but will scratch their head when it goes up and won't be able to explain this. So, Stephen, where do you expect this to go? I mean, with all these people claiming that it's a bubble, is this a bubble, and what do you say to them?
Well, first of all, it's not a bubble. It is not a bubble. And what people have to understand, Josh, is, I mean, recently I put out a pick your target price, or pick a price, yeah? Because as far as I'm concerned, Bitcoin doesn't have a target, it doesn't have a ceiling. It has a limited amount of coins, which is going to be capped at a maximum of 21 million. That is the most fundamental part of evaluating what Bitcoin is going to be worth. So the fact that it's got a pure ceiling on the cap at 21 million, that is your starting point. That's where people have to really start understanding. If you want to set a figure for Bitcoin, you know, people who do these, oh, I think it's going to max out at 5,000, I think it's going to max out at 10,000, I think it's going to max out at 20,000. Where are these numbers coming from? Where I'm completely amazed that these guys are that clever that they can set a price for Bitcoin. I on the other hand, actually don't have a target. You know, we'll start with 1 million. That's my start. You know, now people will say, whoa, well, what is it you're trying to say? You know, are you saying that it's going to hit 1 million? Well, when you cap something at 21 million, how can you actually set a target with a cap on it? To me, it makes no sense. When you're measuring against the dollar, which is a debt instrument, which is losing value and has unfunded futures liabilities, that is growing exponentially, when you compare the dollar against the Bitcoin, which is capped at 21 million, you know, how are people doing it? You know, I would challenge anybody to determine a fixed price cap on Bitcoin. Until somebody turns around to me and says, they've decided to hard fork or change or do whatever they want to do to the blockchain, and it's now not 21 million, it's 221 million, then I'll change my target. But while that cap is in place, as far as I'm concerned, I'll start at 1 million. And people think, well, that's just crazy. That is absolutely crazy. What I will tell them when they say that's crazy was that in 2010, when it was at 10 cents, and it's gone from 10 cents to 2,900 recently, that's 29,000 times. For somebody to get in now, at the same time as somebody got in 2010 and make that same return, in other words, 29,000 times 2,900, 85 million. $85 million per Bitcoin. And really that has to set off alarm bells, because people will say $1 million for Bitcoin is completely crazy. Why? Why is it crazy? I can't understand why people think that's crazy. And bizarrely, Josh, when I mentioned 1 million, and I did get a few people who were just saying, well, that's it, he's completely lost the plot now. You Google $1 million Bitcoin, and it's not just me that's saying it. And this is something that people, you know, at the moment, 2,900 or 2,500 pocket change. It is pocket change because there's only 21 million coins. Or in fact, I think at the moment we're about, I think we've mined about 16 million. So we've got another 5 million, and you know, you could be talking decades before we get to 21 million.
Well, actually, there was this man, I can't recall his name at this moment, but he was the same man that was called crazy in 2016 for saying that Bitcoin will likely surpass $2,500, and he just recently said on CNBC that he sees it going past 100,000 in the next 10 years. And I have no doubt that this is a very real possibility, especially considering the scarcity of the amount in circulation, I suppose you could say, considering the scarcity of something like gold or silver, especially gold, when there's only there's actually a amazingly small amount of gold on the entire planet, which gives it so much value. And I think the same would go for Bitcoin, because there's only 21 million Bitcoin ever being made. So obviously that's going to become more and more scarce. More people will be hanging on to it. It'll be more rare to be able to get your hands on large amounts of it, and that will drive the price up.
Yeah, I mean, Josh, you've hit a nail on the head there. When you talked about gold, and you'll talk about silver. These precious metals are needed for industry. So silver, as we all know, is needed for all our mobile phones, all our computers, all technology. Silver is a much needed precious metal, and it's in the global finance. It's in their interest to drive the price down using derivatives, so that your mobile phones, your mobile phones are cheap, and your laptops are cheap, and your computers are cheap, and all your Internet of Things, they're all cheap. They're all cheap, yeah. And they've driven the silver price down so that those are cheap. And all they've done is by using, as we all know, these toxic derivatives. You try and drive the price down for Bitcoin. You can't do it because you can't drive the price of the Bitcoin in the opposite direction because it's on the blockchain. But more importantly, why would they want to do it? Why would they want to do it? There's no reason to drive the price, because you can't use Bitcoin. It's not needed. And because it's not needed in industry, that's why it's going up. It's actually probably one of the most precious wealth creations around today.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of older people don't understand how great Bitcoin is, how great these cryptos are, because it's just a totally new world to most of them. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that why would they, try to affect the price of Bitcoin? I've been told many times, it's a small market right now. You've mentioned before, it's kind of like pocket change at the moment. But going forward, is there that possibility that, for example, the Fed could buy up over the years massive amounts and try to dump it all at the same time? Is this a possibility, and what do you think would happen if this happened?
Well, if they buy it up at a masses and then try and dump it, unless they actually buy it now, unless they're actually accumulating it now. I mean, I actually believe that banks are accumulating Bitcoin, and really, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot of your viewers, Josh, who will agree. We don't know who actually is buying Bitcoin. All we know is that the price is going up. So the demand is outstripping supply, but nobody knows who the demand is. Could it be central banks? Could central banks be buying Bitcoin, knowing full well that what they've actually got is worth nothing, or actually is negative? Who knows? Who knows? All I can tell you is that it's going up, and not only is it going up, it's going up fast, and because it's got a cap of 21 million. It has an infinite target price. Infinite target. Not a million. I'll start with a million. It's got an infinite target price.
Well, that's incredible. I think that this seems like an example of this fiat centrally planned empire falling as people lose faith in fiat and run to both cryptocurrency and precious metals. What do you think? I mean, it seems like this is a big sign of people losing faith in that fiat system.
Josh, last week I did a video blog, and I talked about, I think the title of the video blog was "The System's Rigged." Not Steam it, as we've talked before, but the system, the global system, the global financial system. It's rigged. And people have to really understand what actually is the financial system. What actually does it consist of? And really, you've got to really look into the fractional banking, you've got to look into the debt, you've got to look into the bonds, you've got to look into derivatives, and you've got to look into news. This is the system. And because it's centralized, they can do what they want with it. They can do what they want with it. The system's been around since the 70s, before the internet. Before the internet, the system that we are on today was around in the 1970s. It might have been computerized. It might have got fancy servers, but at the end of the day, it's still centralized. And the internet that came about in the 80s was the very, 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 in my mind, start of the blockchain technology. That was the start, because you suddenly got not a server talking to a server, but you've got multiple servers. Now, of course, it's took best part of 30 years to develop the blockchain technology, so that when you actually have an agreement between two parties, you put it onto the blockchain, it gets distributed across the digital network. That then determines the price or determines the value. Now, suddenly you're going from the 1970s, where you're talking effectively a one-on-one. They can do whatever they want. If he wants to sell that, if he wants to sell this product to this guy at a certain price and no one else is involved in it, they can determine whatever price they want. But you actually get these two people saying, right, not only have we got to agree the price, but we've got to share it across a distributed network so that everybody can see it and everybody has a say in what the price is. They can't hide it. They cannot hide it. And really, to be quite honest with you, when people suddenly realise that evaluating things on the blockchain is a completely different way to evaluating it on one-on-one, this is when you're going to get true price discovery. This, at the moment, the world we're living in is a complete illusion as far as valuation goes. You take all that garbage valuation that is built up over the last 30 to 40 years and then suddenly put it onto a blockchain and distribute it and say, right, it has to agree across a network of computers, prices will go up and down. Prices will go up and down. And it's not the prices have gone up and down, it's what has actually happened for the last 30 years of distorting the prices. It's all going to come to a head. And I mentioned it on the Max Kaiser show in 2016. Blockchain and derivatives. Woo. People think 2008 was bad. Woo. Nothing. 2008 was nothing. 2008 was a blip. In fact, I think 2008 was a wake-up call to the ones who actually realised what garbage they created in the 70s. That's what really 2008 was. And of course, the people who bailed out, or people who actually coughed up and bailed out, were the taxpayers. You try and do that again with house prices so sky high and debt so sky high. You try and suddenly say, we need another, another 70 trillion because all the derivatives have just imploded.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what we are headed for, and that's the thing about insuring our wealth with precious metals and of course cryptocurrency. And when that system goes down, the values of cryptocurrency, the values of gold and silver will go way up. Of course, many will mention of gold and silver is heavily manipulated right now by the big banks, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Bank of America, on and on and on. All these banks are massively manipulating gold, and there's the paper ETFs, etc., etc., etc. But those chains will be broken once the economy falls, because so will the banks. And I just think that it's important that we know enough about it now so we are able to prepare ourselves for when that happens, because there's no doubt that it's going to happen, that crash is going to happen. The thing is, fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation, so you can't exactly just say on this day it's going to happen. You won't know until right before it happens. And that's why it's so important to be prepared now, because it really could happen at any time. It could happen tomorrow, it could happen in a year, it could happen in 5 years, but it's going to happen. And the later it's pushed off, the more it's going to come down on us. So I just think it's so important that people understand the manipulation, understand the debt-based IOU system, understand that, as you mentioned, the last 30, 40 years with the fiat system that we've seen, and even before that, the centrally planned paper gold system, where they printed 50 times more IOUs than they actually had gold, and that's also going to cause, that debt and inflation. So I just think it's so important that people get off that grid right now, because the problem comes down to that central planning, that fractional reserve banking, that it's really criminal, it's fraudulent, and it's meant to, in my opinion, push people into this kind of debt servitude. I often say on WAM that if you are shoved down that bottomless pit of debt, you're forced to ask for a ladder up from the government or the banking system, and that puts you into servitude to that system. And this is exactly why you should get out of that before you're shoved down that bottomless pit, because the only way to prosperity of the individual is through that free market and free demand, individual demand kind of system where there's no one manipulating it. You, as your own individual person, voting with your dollar is how you will find true value, and you won't find it, manipulating the economy into oblivion, unless you're one of those guys at the very top that knows how to trade on that system. But I don't recommend it to anybody. So Stephen, I love what you have to say on cryptocurrency. I think it's so insightful, and I think so many more people need to understand this system, because we're still on the ground floor of it. We might have seen this massive increase, but we're still on the ground floor.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. As we've talked before about Steemit, and a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, I'm too late for Steemit. You got in last year in August. I'm too late, and therefore I'm not getting in." And I said, that's crazy. We haven't started. The cryptocurrency market hasn't started. It's starting, and it has started sort of gathering momentum, but we haven't seen anything yet. We haven't seen. You wait until everybody's talking about cryptocurrencies. I've always said it's going to take 5 to 7 years. And really, I think 2016 really was the pivotal point for cryptography and cryptocurrency and the blockchain. 2016 really was the end of the paper manipulated centralized system. And really, how long does it take for a system to come on board? About 7 years, 7 to 8 years. So if 2016 was the start, I will probably go as far as to say we're a year into it. We're a year in. And really, the first year would always be, the banner year for cryptography, I think, is going to be 2018. I think 2018 is when it's going to explode. And really, people who are getting in now, they're buying, they're selling, they're trading, they're transferring money on the wallets, they're learning about cryptography. And really, we kind of, people are still playing. The numbers determine, the people, the numbers of people determine that we're really still playing. We, as a group, investors, we are still playing. And really, when the big numbers start coming in, that's when the price will go up. So cryptocurrency, 110 billion, it'll go to 500 billion within the next 9 months.
Absolutely. The sky is the limit. It's a great time to get involved in this, and it's such an exciting time to be alive when we were watching this just explode. And I know you don't get too much into Ethereum yourself, but I wanted to quickly mention something at the end here, just as we've seen a massive increase in the value of Ethereum. We saw it go from about $8, I believe it was, in January, to it hit about $410 as of today, June 12th. 2017, when we are recording this, and it dropped down with the rest of the kind of bloodbath in the markets, in the crypto markets today, to about 350, settling around 375. It's been incredible to be involved in that as well. I know a lot of people are very excited about that, and a lot of people are excited about Dash. I'm not a big fan of Dash myself, but I've seen a lot of people make a lot of money over the last year. That's what I mean when it comes to the cryptocurrency market. Just watching it from January to today, it's just been explosive. And people complain when it does a little minor correction. But really, when it corrects, it's usually way above the floor from the last time it corrected. So people say, well, it pulled back. Yeah, it pulled back to the price a week ago, not even a couple days ago. And there's no need to be, worried about that. You're still way up than you were from what you were a week ago. So I just think people have to keep the faith. This is a patience game for most of us, and a lot of people aren't even just trading back and forth, selling high, buying low. Obviously, the exchanges are really slow, and that's a problem that needs to be fixed. But a lot of people are just holding on to it and watching it go up in value, understanding when it drops that it's not the end of the world, and when it goes back up, they continue to be handsomely paid. And I think it's the beginning of something huge. So thanks, Stephen, for going into Bitcoin for us and the cryptocurrency market. This is so important. I hope you get involved today. And for those wondering how to help out us at WAM, you can find our Bitcoin address on the screen for you to scan, as well as in the description and the comments below. We hope that you can help us out, as we are demonetized and censored by YouTube. Then again, we also have Steemit, where I'm at Josh Sigurdson on Steemit. Stephen Kendal is at Stephen Kendal, and you can support both of us by upvoting our posts, getting involved in Steemit. This is a future of social media, and I hope we see you there soon. But until next time, thanks, Stephen. And this is Josh Sigurdson with Stephen Kendal signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.